Since some of you ask how do I edit my DG videos and achieve cool looks like this, I thought I would make this short video to explain exactly how I do it. I am using DaVinci Resolve Studio. Let's start with a simple example. What we want to achieve is this cool 3D looking floating in space screen recording of what we do in the software on top of the actual camera recording. So you can see on the timeline, I have two layers. Top being the overlay, and if I disable it, it goes away. And the bottom being the actual camera recording. So nothing special with the camera recording. The interesting part is the overlay itself. When I zoom in into the overlay, you can see that it doesn't look exactly like in the DJ software. In this case, Tractor. UI elements are all shifted around in order to make a better composition. You can also see spaces between UI elements, which makes it more cool, I guess. And also behind this overlay, there is a bit of shadow. And if I remove it, you can see it's not as convincing. So if I get it back, it looks much nicer. So let me start with an empty timeline. You can see that there is only camera recording on it right now. So now I drag the screen recording on top of the camera recording, align the audio tracks. I don't think I need to explain how to do it. You can do it by ear. So if I make screen recording smaller, you can see it's on top of the camera recording. Now, in order to achieve that cool look of different pieces of UI being shifted around, the main trick is to crop different parts of the screen recording and duplicate it as layers in order to achieve different parts being positioned in different places. So let me give you an example. If I want to see just the waveforms, I will crop the image to my liking, and then I can position it wherever I want. If I want to see, for example, the track name of deck A, what I need to do is to duplicate my screen recording. I will hold Alt and drag it on top. Let me reset my cropping and position. Now let's crop to the track name, and you can drag it wherever you want. So by repeating this process, you can achieve exactly the layout you want. Let me for now remove the track name for simplicity. So how do you position your waveform in this 3D space? For this, you can use the fusion effect within the toolbox called DDE. Just drag it on top of the clip. At first, it doesn't look like what we need, but bear with me. Go to border and turn border blend to 0. Now go to your Z position and turn it to your liking in order to make it smaller or larger. The most interesting part is this rotation. This is how you rotate and position your screen overlay on top of the video. Drag these sliders to understand what they do and which ways they rotate the picture. For example, Y-axis turns it to the left and right. Now let me adjust the position to make it a bit smaller. And also let me move it a bit to the left using this X and Y position. You can see it doesn't really match right now, so let's keep rotating until it fits. This is more or less good. Now what we can do to spice it up is just go to video properties and make it a bit more transparent. Congrats, you just achieved a very cool DG video look. Now if you want to position multiple UI elements in 3D space, far more convenient clip is to have so-called compound clip. The clip which contains multiple clips in itself, but then on the main timeline can be manipulated in various different ways. So let me reset all that we've done to the screen recording. And what I will do is click on my screen recording and click New Compound Clip. Call it whatever you want. Now I will right click and click Open in Timeline. This will open the clip in a separate timeline where we can manipulate all the UI elements and then get back to our main timeline where all the UI elements will be combined in a single clip. To add a bit more flavor to your UI composition, I actually like rounding the corners a bit. To do this, instead of using default cropping method, you will go to your Open Effects and find Transform. Drag it onto the clip, go to Image Adjustment, toggle Crop on Crop, and now use these sliders to crop the image to your liking. By the way, you can zoom in to the image by using your scroll wheel and the middle mouse click in order to drag the image around. Press Z on the keyboard to turn it back to where it was. Once you cropped it, tweak this edge rounding to your liking. Let's add two other UI elements to our composition. I will duplicate the clip, reset my transform controls, and crop the image to show only the track name. Again, tweak edge rounding to your liking. Repeat the same for the other deck. Reset all the controls, press Z to return to a default view, go to image adjustment, crop, now crop from the left side. Now that we cropped it, you can see it's on the right. If we want to position it closer to our deck A title, just use this position X slider to move it to the left. Cool. So you can repeat it the same way with all the other UI elements. For now, I'm good with what we've done. Now that we return to the main timeline, you can see that the composition is already in place in the way that we want. First things first, let me turn down the opacity and then go find our DVE within the toolbox, drag it on top of the compound clip that we created, go to border, disable the border, go to Z position, and make it larger. Use X and Y positions to position it the way we want. And finally, use a rotation to position it in 3D space. Looks nice to me. If you're experiencing troubles playing back the clip in real time, what you can do in DaVinci Resolve specifically is go to playback, timeline, playback resolution, and turn it somewhere to quarter. It doesn't affect final result once you render everything, but it makes playback way smoother. As you can see, it plays back in real time right now. This is your level 1, but there is level 2, which requires a bit more computer resources and preparation. As an example, you can see this video. The UI elements are positioned as if they were behind me. Let's get back to our example and try to see how do we achieve it. The trick is to cut me out of video and put on top of the overlay. Easier to show than to say. What you will need to do is to duplicate your video clip and put it on top of our overlay. Now we need to apply the magic mask. Go to color page. So if you don't have any color corrections, this is what you're going to see. Just one node. What we need to do is go to this magic mask section. You can use faster algorithm or better, obviously better results. Make sure you selected this object mask instead of person mask. It just works better. Drag on top of the object you want to select. And also on the right, click Add Alpha Output and drag this blue dot to this blue dot. To check what has been selected, you can click this toggle overlay button. Before we do anything else, let's check that truly we can position our UI elements on the background of the person. Let's click on our compound clip, go to Effects, and drag this position slider to position it behind the object. So this is exactly what we want to achieve. Waveforms behind the person. Now let's go back to our magic mask. Click on the top clip and click on the color page. And what we need to do right now is essentially, since we just drag this mask only on one frame, we need DaVinci to track it backwards and forwards to extract the person out of the image. I will switch to better mode and click this button over here to track the clip backwards and forwards. This might take quite a bit of time depending on your computer. By the way, if you own Apple Silicon Mac, Apple has just released a new version of Final Cut Pro, which has the same magic mask functionality, and it works way faster on Apple computers. All the other 3D positioning steps can be done very similar in Final Cut. Now that the tracking is done, let's go back to our timeline and check that everything works as expected. Cool. Waveforms are moving behind the person and it looks way nicer than the previous example. Though, as I told you, it requires way more computer resources to accomplish. I'm doing all my editing on the M1 MacBook Air with 16 gigs of RAM, so probably if you own Apple Silicon Mac, you'll be good. Some final disclaimer, this magic mask stuff is not really consistent and sometimes can go off depending on your playback resolutions and other phases of the moon. You can read a lot online and watch the videos on YouTube how to achieve a consistent result of Magic Mask. Or again, if you use Final Cut Pro, you can use Magic Mask in there in order to achieve more stable results. Wrapping it all up, the main goal of this video was to provide you a guide on how to achieve the result, not necessarily specific steps. Though I do use DaVinci in this case, you can use Final Cut or other software to achieve very similar results. The process is very similar. First step, just do the composition of your UI elements in the space, crop, reposition, drag around, just make it look nice for your specific case. Second step is to place your composition in 3D space on top of the actual video to make it look realistic. Add a bit of transparency and shadows to make it even more convincing. And third step is if you have a powerful computer and if you have passion to make it very nicely, I guess, is to make a duplicate of your video, put it on the top of the stack, cut yourself out of this very top clip, and position the screen overlay behind yourself. I think that's actually it for this video. Hopefully it helps you. If you still have questions, you can write them down in the comments. I'll try to answer. I'm not a DaVinci expert by any means. I just watched YouTube tutorials online. So yeah, that's pretty much it. See you next time.